How's it going, everyone? Andy here from 4K Downtime, here to give you a 4K review. Today the title that I want to talk about is Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, a game that came out in 2014 for the Wii U, and finally now it's re-releasing on the Switch. Now this is one of those games that I literally really wanted it to be re-released on the Switch, just purely based on the fact that I think it was a absolutely fantastic 2D platformer. As a matter of fact, I will go into detail a little bit why it's so great, even though you probably have seen a lot of reviews this time that talks about all of that already. But I just want to quickly mention that this game obviously came out in 2014, and when it first came out in 2014 it did receive critical acclaim, but unfortunately it didn't sell that well. So I was really happy to hear Nintendo is actually giving this title a second chance, because I really do believe that with how successful the Switch is, it could actually benefit from that. But anyway, enough about that. In terms of the actual game itself, so Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is a 2D platformer. It's a sequel to Donkey Kong Country Returns, developed by Retro Studios, and the sequel is pretty much every bit as good as the first one. As a matter of fact, I will go so far as to say it's much better than the first one. Also guys, one thing I wanted to start off by apologizing right from the beginning of this video is that unfortunately I don't have any capture software to capture Switch footage, so throughout the whole of this review it's only going to be clips comprises of from the trailers that Nintendo has actually released. Unfortunately, I wish I could show some of my own gameplay footage, but I just don't have the capturing software for this, so please forgive me, and let's go from here. This game itself is absolutely fantastic. The level design is absolutely phenomenal. The music is amazing, and to top it all off, when it comes to 2D platformers, or shall I say just platformers in general, it's control. You need to feel you're in 100% control at all times, and that's exactly what Tropical Freeze delivers. When it comes to level designs, the levels itself is just, they're very creative in the sense here that everything that you see here, it's these levels go really bonkers, by the way. Sometimes you could see a big buzzsaw from the back chasing you all the way through, and you're riding on a minecart, and the only reason why you're still going forward, it's literally because there are certain platforms pieces of wood flying towards your way, or if you're racing down a giant lava chasing you all the way through, and the only reason why again you're on certain platforms is because they're some melting ice parts that's been broken off. As you use those platforms, you will literally be in a tornado, and the reason behind that, when you're jumping from platform to platform, is just purely because, well, you're inside the tornado, and these parts are blowing all over the place. So the level designs are really creative. So if you've never played it before, it really received my highest recommendation. In terms of music wise, the music by David Wise, he's the original composer for Donkey Kong Countries, and if you've liked his work back on the Super Nintendo Country games, you will love it here. As a matter of fact, I will argue that this soundtrack over here is much better than the previous one. It's definitely the best work of David Wise ever. I mean, I'll give you guys a few samples right now. You can have a listen to it. when it comes to the improvements that this one has made over to the original, it's simply the fact that now it runs at 1080p, so it looks a bit more crisp, a bit more cleaner, a bit more detailed as well. Some of the textures are better. And of course, like, it runs at 60 in both docked and undocked as well. But unfortunately, when you play undocked, yeah, it's not even native like 720p. Sometimes it actually dips below that. But in terms of when being docked, it's 1080 all the way through, and it runs 60 both, like, on docked and undocked. And what I did like about it is like one improvement that has been made is that the load time is far more better in this one. In the original Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, the load times was very long. Every time, like, when you start a level, you have to wait quite a bit before, like, the level actually loads. So that in itself was a bit of a bummer, but I'm kind of glad that it's been fixed here. Now, of course, the biggest addition to this edition is literally the introduction of Funky Kong. Now, Funky Kong, in, like, real short ways to put it, it's simply the easy mode for this game. Now, one thing I do appreciate about this is that Nintendo literally have, like, because of the biggest criticism that Tropical Freeze sadly, like, I've gotten during the release of the Wii U, is the fact that the game is simply too hard for if you don't have if you're not already somewhat familiar with platformers, or even like somewhat good with platformers, you will literally have a lot of trouble, like, find yourself dying again and again. Now granted, when it comes to extra lives, it's pretty plentiful. Like, if you collect, like, enough bananas, or, like, if you're observant about the levels, you could be able to stock up on lives fairly easily. And even if you did run out of lives, you could easily buy it directly from Funky. So, but still, that didn't alleviate, like, the amount of stress that people actually had, especially with some of the later levels. Some of the later levels is like split timing. If you miss a champion, then you're just going to die again and again. So with the introduction of Funky, the whole point is, like, to make the game a bit more accessible. For example, he starts off with 5 lives actually, sorry, instead of, like, the regular 2 that the Kongs actually do have. And there are other things like, for example, Spikes doesn't hurt him due to the fact that he actually have, like, his board with him. He could double jump, he could hover with his board as well. So he's really fun to play as, don't get me wrong, especially, like, if you want to speedrun a game, he's absolutely perfect to do. However, his character was clearly not designed for levels like this, because most of the time when I was playing through the level, I found myself just constantly rolling, double jumping, and then, like, even if I know I'm about to drop on a pit, due to the fact that Funky could actually, like, glide with his with his board, it didn't seem like much of an issue. It almost kind of felt like you could breeze through a lot of these levels, and you could make a lot of, like, reckless jumps and that kind of stuff without timing, and you would, for the most part, you would still be able to kind of, even, like I said, even if you're about to land on the pit, as long as you would hover a little bit, there will usually be something for you to grab on, either a vine or a platform that you could land on. So in that sense, Funky actually, the inclusion of Funky actually contradicts a little bit of the of Retro's original level design, and that's my kind of like my biggest problem with him. But he is very fun to play, and like I said, if you want to speedrun a level, he's a great thing for speedrunners. And they did re-release certain not re-release, I mean, like, they did do obviously certain cutscenes with him, like, those little mini clips here that you actually see him before fighting the bosses, just like the original Kongs did, and some of his ones are pretty funny. Like, I think the most famous one that everybody was talking about, that they should make it into a meme, it's where he was about to fight the owl, and when he hits the banana, like, you just hear him go like, "No!" And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty funny. The other thing, and this is actually a bit of a disappointment that I had even with the original release, it's simply the fact that it's your animal buddies. Rambi is still the only one, because Rambi was already introduced back in Returns, and sadly he's once again the only one that have actually returned in this one. I would have liked a lot more of the other animal buddies, especially the one that Rare has introduced back in the old country games. I mean, if Retro ever does work on another sequel, that was one thing that I really was hoping for them to bring back, because I felt like Rambi's cool and stuff, I love him, but I would have liked to see some of the older faces as well, like, that would have been great. And the only other thing that I wasn't necessarily too fond of yet, sadly, it's basically like, the bonus levels, like, the ones that you just simply bounce up and down. It's always the same area, collect all the bananas, and then, like, you get a puzzle piece or a Kong letter and whatsoever. And I just felt like they could have added a little bit more creativity to those, especially, like, Retro's design for all these other levels are spectacular. The bosses are amazing and they're great to fight. Like I said, the introduction are very hilarious as well. But I was just a bit let down by some of these these secret levels. Now, I just want to quickly adjust one common complaint that I've been constantly hearing again and again, is that this game itself, and I've actually brought it up in my previous videos as well, so you could go back and check those out, is that this game is not worth $60, or over here in the UK, yeah, it's £49.99, and I could see why, because first of all, the original Tropical Freeze, yeah, over here when it was released, yeah, I believe it was only $39.99, so it's technically £10 less. And granted, I know so far, yeah, as far as I remember, yeah, every Wii U port that's came out to Switch so far has been original price. And I feel like out of all the Wii U ports, this is probably the hardest one to stomach. Again, because it was actually cheaper when it was first coming out on the Wii U, so it's not even the same price as it when it first came on the Wii U. It's actually a little bit more in that sense. And the new content here aren't exactly new, or should I say, some of the new stuff maybe people probably won't think too highly of it. Like Funky himself, yeah, it's not really enough to justify that extra tenner that has been added on top. But I mean, the way how I see it, from what I have actually experienced with the game and everything like that, is that I still think it's an amazing platformer. I mean, it has enough content in there to warrant that price tag, if that's what you're wondering. But I could also understand, if you just don't feel like buying it just purely because of the fact that you think because the title itself has been so old at this point, and to see Nintendo charging even more than what it originally was when it was released on the Wii U, that in itself is a bit too hard to stomach. I totally get that. But one thing I will say is that don't pass up on it completely, even if you don't think it's worth the price right now. Yeah, maybe you want to wait for a price drop, maybe it drops down to $39.99 and you think it's worth it by then. Then you could get it if you want, but I do hope people who are interested in the game won't just pass on it completely just because they didn't agree with the price. Like I said, personally for me, I felt like the game offered enough content to warrant that price tag anyway. But if you don't think it's worth it, I totally understand why. But if you are already interested, yeah, and you just felt like it's a bit too expensive right now, still keep an eye out on it, maybe wait for the price to drop and then buy it, because this is one amazing platformer that I really don't want people to give it a pass just purely because you didn't agree with the price, because this is one of those games I really do want people to try out because it is really good. And no matter what level of player are you, I think back then on the Wii U I would say this for hardcores only, but because now they've made it a lot more mainstream, the difficulty is a bit more well balanced. As a matter of fact, you'll be surprised that Funky mode is actually the default mode that everybody wants to try out. So it's clearly that Nintendo know that it was very hard. It's here you go, this new character here will basically make it a lot more basically manageable, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's just me wanting to give my 2 cents on that topic, just on that particular subject alone. But overall, my verdict is that I absolutely love it. I think the game is amazing. I don't really want to kick a dead horse anymore. Everything about it I really love. And yeah, if you do have a chance, if you do really like 2D platformers and you've never played it before, then I absolutely recommend it to you. But if you have already played it before, like I have, and you've beaten it, maybe have already found all the secrets and everything like that, and you've in that sense, I would say Funky and the casual stuff probably wouldn't appeal to you at all. So maybe you could give a pass on it if you've already played it and you've done everything. But for everybody who hasn't, it received my highest recommendation, full stop. So thank you so much guys for watching. As always, really much appreciated, and I hope you like the way how I've review this video, because I'm still not so used to like, you know, doing reviews and stuff. So like if there's anything you thought I could improve upon, feel free to comment below. Like, you know, I'll read you guys' comments and I try to respond as quickly as possible usually. But thank you so much, guys. Like I said, couldn't express my gratitude enough, but thank you so much and have a good one. Take it easy. Yeah, bye.